It's going to be on your page. I'm on Jennifer, my personal.
DeLia?
Yeah,
All
'cause I
right.
haven't figured out how to do it with Humanizing the Icon. You guys, be nice. No fighting.
All right. So it seems that we're currently live.
We are.
Good evening, everyone. One love.
It's still like adjusting to Facebook. Let me see. Is it on your timeline, Satya?
I'm putting it on my timeline right now. So it is.
Okay, it's on mine too. Um,
All right. So it's happening. We're live right now.
okay, nice.
It's
So
still like adjusting to Facebook.
Let me turn my volume off. Okay. All right, there.
wonderful.
Okay. Hi.
Beloved, good to see you. One love.
Nice to see you too.
Absolutely. So
How are
right
you?
now, I'm sorry.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm feeling good, taking care of oneself and taking care of close ones, and also keeping an eye on what's going on the macro level, socially speaking, politically speaking.
Mm-hmm.
And that's that for now. How are you?
No, I mean I myself am doing well, you
Right.
know. It's been a very dynamic week with some heaviness, obviously, absolutely for sure. Um, and it's global. It's a global unified movement. And so I'm in LA, you're in Montreal. What's it been like since the George Floyd murder and
Mm.
protests started? Like, honestly, what's it been like there? What do you feel from this?
Um, Good question. It sprouts conversations.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's conversations that's been occurring for quite some times already, but this last event brought it in the forefront. And there's a lot of from my seeing close ones. There's pain, and there's you can see some ancestral um, pain and suffering, and direct address to obviously the systemic racism.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Now there's a lot of conversations. Let's just say it this way, between blacks, between whites, and between um, different cultures, um, and it's sensitive right
Mm-hmm.
now. And it is a time to go inside of ourselves, see our integrity, what is our understanding to that, and to find a way to navigate the emotions to have a result that is constructive, and at the very same time understanding that when we're aiming towards having a result that is constructive, that there could be an aspect of deconstruction.
Yeah.
And the deconstruction aspect can bring confusion,
Mm-hmm.
and also can bring also being open-minded.
Mm-hmm.
um, it is important to keep an eye open,
Mm-hmm.
because there's a time where many agendas aligns, and people with good intentions can provoke an action that so-called oppressors may take advantage of. So it's important that when we on the front line, or when we let's say that when we're on the front line, to keep an eye open, because what we may see as enemy can also not be that clear. And there's such a things as infiltrators. And we've been seeing in the riots, there's been things that was quite fishy as well. So it's very important to master emotions and understanding also that there's a game of chess that is being played, and results are not necessarily quick. It may take time. So patience, clarity are extremely important. And at the very same time, from out of that, when we strike, it could be a strike that is precise and that really does the job. So yeah, I would just wanted to add that and say that. Yeah. So it's been in Montreal, it's been conversations, you know, some positive, interesting things. Also, I have you know, a friend of mine. She's saying that in her neighborhood, there's more kindness around. There's more kindness. There's people who are opening up and not being on the defensive, rather, you know, seeking to understand and seeing that, you know, if someone close to me is, you know, you know, coming from a different background and culture as Black, and have there's certain emotions that, let me honor that, let me understand that, not just believing what's in the media, but direct experience from someone, you know. So that have caused some openings. So that I found it was interesting that, you know, she's already experiencing more kindness in her neighborhood. And there've been, you know, some right now there's been links from some blogs, you know, like if you want to invest or get to know Black owned restaurants, Black owned business, you know, certain concrete action like that is quite interesting. So yeah, you know, but you know, that's it. That's all I can say. But it's a worldwide thing. I mean, it feels like, as you know, I'm also with Exodius, my partner. We're also in a skincare, and you know, just like in skincare, you know, sometimes it may happen. Sometimes you can have to burst the pimple, and it's not gonna be beautiful. It's not gonna be pretty, and things will come out, you know, and we're gonna have to go through it, and then there'll be healing. So that's that.
Yeah, it's interesting having all of these conversations and kind of seeing what the different lenses are, you know, in terms of human rights and the systemic aspect. It's like, it's kind of overwhelming, all the layers, I feel like.
Absolutely. You know, I have a friend of mine. She's been dealing with, you know, first of all, dealing with her own ignorance on the matter, and also been dealing with the racism in her own family. So, as an open-minded, you know, person who's has friends in different cultures, she's been looking to understand the matter, recognizing her own ignorance on the matter, and openly saying, like, I need to be educated, you know, and at the very same time looking to share that education on with her family, but not at all an easy task. And you know, she's been she's been hurtful, she's been hurt, you know, and she's been hurt, and you know, was saying, whoa, maybe I'm not for the front line. Maybe being on the front line to help change is not my place. Maybe it's too much, you know, and you know, and we had the discussion. Of course, there's a part of sometimes you may bite more than you can chew, you know, and you need to take it easy as well. But you know, these are different perspective, and our conversation led to the fact that, you know, it's a multi-dimensional thing. You know, it's a multi-dimensional thing. And saying, you know, for example, when we say we all one, you know, when we say that, we must be sure that we don't do that only to kind of simplify everything.
Our conversation led to the fact that, you know, it's
to simplify everything, but also to accept the different point of views and kind of sit in those point of views, and to accept, you know, the not just to repress, but allow certain things to come out, certain different point of views, certain words that can be shocking to hear, you know, and to allow that to happen. And so when we say we all one, it's also to allow that to understand and then go with an action that is balanced, that brings healing, you know. I've had I just wanted to add one more thing. You know, I've had somebody in my network who's very influential in a so-called yoga community. You know, her and her husband are a so-called biracial, and you know, they have children, and they're a wonderful couple who sings together, do yoga classes, you know, quite influential. And she made a publication where she said the silence from the yoga community is daring, like it's too much. And it was interesting, you know, and I've seen some other posts from another yogi who was like, my people in the wellness community, what's up? Hello, you know. So different lenses, different point of views. Listen, we're definitely in a time where we're sparking this conversation being sparked, and it's absolutely important that there's real measures, not just you know, political or measures just for the look, for the appearance, but actually real measures on the micro and also on the macro. Saying it is very easy, but it's a process when it comes to actions, you know.
Yeah. And it's tricky. Like, I know that for our show, Humanizing the Icon, I had a chat scheduled for this week, you know, with someone that I know who does work in various communities around the world that are oppressed, all types of communities. And he's an artist who leads communities in certain types of projects. And it's a very well-established organization. And we decided not to do that chat this week, you know, really to give space for reflection and education, as we all need to become more educated. It doesn't matter what position you're sitting in. I feel like we all need to kind of understand from a holistic perspective more if we can, you know, and also just on our own, figuring out how we feel and how do we process what's coming up for ourselves and for the collective. And you and I decided to do this spontaneously, and that also feels right. As it felt right to push the other chat to next week, and it felt right to do this with you at the same time, because at the same time as we're giving space for everyone to process, we're also processing together. And
Absolutely.
we have been in isolation, and this connection is important. Also to just admit that I don't know. I don't have answers, and I don't know. I feel things a lot, but like, what, I don't know. And it's okay to be together in the I don't know, in the void of it all, you know, and not to have so much pressure on oneself to have a particular way to help or be of service, but to know that it's okay to take time and space to reflect, to see what feels authentic, because
absolutely,
it's such a big layered situation. And you know, also, like, we just started releasing a project together that the message is, why not choose love? And
exactly.
The message is Dove Raven and humanizing the icon and artists uniting. you know, and Mary Pickford's the subject, but Tupac, you know, is the first face you see in that movie about Mary Pickford. And she happened to be someone who talked about transcending age, ethnicity, and gender, and about that oneness. And Tupac was such a prolific poet when it comes to these universal themes, you know? So you're involved in that project. Like, does it feel like a good moment for that piece in particular? Like, how do you feel as an artist and as a producer about like the work you're putting out into the world at this time?
It feels aligned. In many ways, it feels aligned. First of all, it's such a interdimensional project. And the people, the beings who are the icons, you know, and that are part of it, that we have including in there, you know, their imagery, their symbols, their meanings, also have addressed stuff that are going on right now, like right now. You know, what's going on. I've seen, you know, many quotes of Tupac circulating, you know, in the social media, and, you know, very specific quotes or, you know, excerpts from interviews that you would think, you know, it's the guy is alive and just saying it now, you know, and he's as if he's responding directly to what's going on now. So we're seeing the issues in our society, obviously, you know, it's been going on for a while, you know. It repeats itself, or if it doesn't repeat itself, it surely rhymes. You know. So and you know, for myself, I feel great that, you know, as I grew up with Tupac's message, you know, as you know, as an artist,
oh my gosh,
what's going on?
Potentially an earthquake.
Oh my God.
I'm not kidding.
Girl, do you need to do something? Go hide you know.
No, I feel like I'm in the perfect spot.
Okay.
I mean, there is always a chance some big truck goes on the road, and like New York with the subways, you'll feel a vibration, but I'm like certain that's not what just happened. I wonder if anyone's saying, I don't know. That went on for a while.
Whoa.
Like the whole time I was paused like that, the ground was shaking.
Whoa. Live.
Whoa.
California with you. California. Whoa. Earthquake, almost, or potentially. My partner here says that she had a dream that there was an earthquake. I'm not making this up.
Well, I think she might have been onto something.
I think so too.
This is all so strange.
What?
Have you watched Esoteric Agenda?
I haven't, not yet. And I was thinking about that yesterday.
I finally finished the second one, but it's super interesting, you know.
How many of those segments?
2. Yeah, but he has 4 movies, you know. They're all really good and interesting. I think he's really good at like kind of laying out all the different, not all, but many different scenarios and possibilities of what's been going on with systems and what are some of the different outlooks, and kind of saying that like all these experts in these various fields put out great arguments or present great cases for their point and their message. If they all are equally as solid or proven, where you choose, you know, or you just kind of zoom out because you realize the power of our minds to create also what these different possibilities are. And so if we're that powerful, where many different groups can create such a solid, what we would call argument or case for a particular point, then we can be that powerful in coming up with solutions and sort of shape shifting the setup, you know. But how do we use our creative energy? Actually, our creative energy.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I feel, thank you for saying that. It's very well expressed. I feel that in spontaneity,
Set up.
there is
How
a
do we use our
key
creative energy?
to be used. You know, when we're spontaneous and that we adapt to the moment, we can find ourselves being less machinic and express and experience different point of views, different angles, as long that it feels right inside. And that there's not necessarily like, you know, I think that just like, you know, peace or even let's say love doesn't have only one image to represent them. You may love and, you know, caress, and you may also, with this energy of love, love calls you to just put your fist on the table, give people attention, and say something for the moment. It's about what calls to it. And for that, we must connect with the at least for me, I'm not going to say for everyone, but for me, the way I experience that is to connect with the essence of whatever we choose to connect with. So whatever forms that it takes, whatever different point of views that it takes, that we're more like, we're responding from an authentic moment and not just from a program or a conditioning, you know, or a fixed idea or, yeah, you know, as for myself, I feel that freedom and love and peace are definitely things to nurture and understand. You know, and freedom gives you that, you know, freedom gives you that, you know, you won't necessarily be afraid to express something that may be not in the appearance that we think it should be.
Yeah.
You know,
also,
just to be politically correct.
Yeah, and it's so hard to know how to be correct right now, and I don't know if there's correct, you know. But we can speak as artists because we are.
And we're artists, so
And
hey.
yeah, and like, is it our responsibility to really make sure we're clear on what the messages are that we're putting out, but to make sure we're putting them out, you know, whether it's in the form of visuals or music or poetry or discussion, like we want to keep the potential to recreate our structure is through that creative pulse, right?
Yeah.
So the more you kind of infuse it all with, let's just say, art, it's like feeding something with sweetness, you know, like if you say love is your message, then everything you create would in theory support that.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't, and I'm talking about for you, Satya, I'm not saying for anybody else. Somebody else's message might be anger, could be whatever it is. Each person gets to hone that and express that and be that, you know? And it changes. It can go from anger to love. It can go from here to there. It can go, this is like the fluidity of it all, you know? So if yours is love, because that's an amazing vibe to work with. And then you get to make sure that whatever you're putting out supports that message. Then it would be a good thing, right? That you, as an ambassador of love, would be creating art that would be put out. That's a contribution, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, I was just wondering.
I have a way to stay still and listen, you know?
Yeah, I was just wondering, like,
yeah, absolutely.
it's confusing. It's like, okay, should I not be putting something out? But if that's the message.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
that's nourishing, right?
That's nourished, absolutely. You know, if it's nourishing, it's, as artists, there's always that talk of freedom of speech, or there's that talk of, or there's also like, as an artist, knowing that your work has an impact. Is it, and knowing that your work has an impact and an influence, what if it could be detrimental? What if it can be perceived as this or that, for sure there's, we as artists, there's different process, different ways, some artists likes to provoke.
So yeah, different intentions.
Intentions, exactly. Some like to provoke, and if, for example, they provoked you as you receive the art that provoked you, then it's up to you in a way also to kind of do your inner work. I, for myself, the way I consume people's art, or just me as an artist that put things out, it could be just this very talk, or it could be a text that I'm putting out. It could be a video, a photo, a quote, whatever. I like to see many sides of the same story, different perception. And sometimes, especially lately, I've been taking more time to respond. So it would make sense also for an artist to take your time, to ask those questions. It's also part of the refinement of the soul, of your process. And when we talk about humanizing the icon, and also the web series, Why Not Choose Love, that we're putting out right now, already with, you have Tupac opening, and then you have this sort of story and experience of the MARY PICKFORD stories, with full of symbols, and and it's multi-dimensional. Just that opens up. It brings Tupac to certain people who wouldn't know Tupac. And that, to me, is, it's funny to say, but it's as if that it's my personal, like, also testimony to my years of growing up listening to Pac. Is like, yo, I got you, brother. I got you. Like, I get it. I get the message, and I get you. And you will also, seeing how it's just opening up and allows this, Tupac's voice also to be in this story, Mary Pickford. And there's people who've been following Pac will be like, oh, who's this Mary Pickford lady?
And also, like we talked about, just going off of what you're saying right now, how we were discussing, like, even what he's saying in those opening lines.
Yeah.
In our movie with Tupac's voiceover opening the film about Mary Pickford, the mother of Hollywood. I mean, there's definitely
Right.
some historians and people going, what? Like, how does this relate? And it's like, well, they were both advocates for independent artistry. They
Yeah.
were both about the universality of being human.
Yeah.
And he's saying, you know, you're not born independent. You got to learn how to be independent. And with that independence, then you get to be cooperative. You know, it's like when you know who you are, then you fit really well into this idea of a harmonious whole.
Exactly.
Because if you're in this reactive mode of competition, it's hard to be in cooperation.
Oh yeah, it is.
You know,
Because
and
you,
because you're perfect
Jai.
and every person has a gift to offer, and if each person knew that, there wouldn't be competition.
Absolutely.
Because I can't be you, you can't be me.
Exactly.
We're made of the same elements, we breathe the same air. On that level we are one, but we're still unique bubbles made from the same bubble bath. That's what I say, you know. And so Tupac knew that, and Mary Pickford knew that, and he's saying you gotta love, you know, Korean kids and Mexican kids and black kids. Like he's spouting out, he's like poetic, being a poet and calling out just different sects of the population. This is what Tupac is saying, you know.
Absolutely. You know, as you say very well, because you know each, you know each kind, each, you know, however you want to call it, each culture,
Mhm.
you know, are bringing something. And for example, like with, you know, the major discussion we're having in the last few days, you know, with, for example, the movement of the Black Lives Matter, the thing is that you have a system that is competitive, and that,
What system? Our system as a
oh,
species.
so we're talking about we're talking about, first of all, just in America, or just even in the world, uh, in business and politics, you know, there's competition, you know, competition more than collaboration and cooperation.
Exactly.
And this competition, what it brings and the way that it is executed
Mm-hmm.
is that it looks to removes opportunities to
Mm-hmm.
specific kinds,
Mm-hmm.
and that comes from a state of lack,
Mm-hmm.
to not focus on, you know. And the um same thing for, it could be like, just like Pac's talking about, you know, it could be the blacks, it could be the Korean, Mexican kids, it could be also the women, which is another fight. Women, you know, is like fighting for equality, or at least to have equal pay. Or it's, what is the issue is people that their point of view and unique gift as people would bring to the table of solutions to humanity and humanity.
Mm-hmm.
So when we recognize that cooperation is the way,
Mm-hmm.
how can there be systemic racism, systemic sexism? How can there be when,
How can people feel threatened
exactly,
by these groups? And even though we're bringing up the whole of humanity, we obviously recognize the Black Lives Matter movement as something really important as its own movement,
absolutely,
and then recognizing the vitality and the importance of what it represents to the whole of humanity.
yeah, because an evolved society, and what we're talking about evolve, I'm talking about in the consciousness,
Mm-hmm.
would need
Mm-hmm.
to have a Black Lives Matter. We need to have a necessarily like a feminist group.
Mm-hmm.
We need to fight for what is a given, what should be there.
Mm-hmm.
So this
You're saying
shows,
this as a Black man, like,
yeah,
it's
but of
really,
course, but because so if we the society have come to a place where a movement like Black Lives Matter must be, society and its core values is a failure. It's a failure because people shouldn't fight for that. They shouldn't have to.
right.
They shouldn't have to. It's like, how can there be? And unfortunately, it is there
Mm-hmm.
because it has to. And so it's particular. So society as it is now, obviously, or what, and it's multidimensional. Some will say it's capitalism, some will say there's different wording that are used, but when you see the in all different aspects, is that you see there's malpractice, and you see that there's a certain deontology, that when you're in a position of so-called power, that there's certain responsibilities that you have,
Mm-hmm.
and certain people shouldn't have to fight
Right.
to have a place, and it reminds me of a conversation I had with somebody close to me in my family, and we were talking about the economic system, and we were talking about the central bank and all these things, and we had the discussion. I was like, how interesting, that you would have such a thing as the central bank, and you would live in a world with people dying of hunger. You would have countries and continents where people just literally dying of hunger, like nothing else, not a disease necessarily, not an abuse, just hunger. How can we live in a society where wealth, how you have certain countries who are producing natural resources that are vital, and those countries are poor? There's definitely a mismanagement somewhere. So as we like to look at our at our society as evolved, are we really looking to the in the full spectrum? Or are we just looking at what we want to see? So, and
Sorry.
it feels that now, many things come up. Many things come up to bring a collective focus, so that collectively we may heal and take measures that make sense in the long run. From and that goes for even the group starting to more sustainability, more ecological, like all of these things are part of the same fight, but it's multi-dimensional. It's multi-dimensional, just like we had here in Canada, the Native American fighting to block the project of a pipeline, and fighting to have their land respected. Is that a fight that should have occurred, period? So certain things come up so that there could be a collective, it could have exposure, and certain measures can follow through. And we're at a brink in society where it's like, oh, it may go very well, or it may go very, very bad. But individually speaking, it's for me, the way I see it, it's not a time necessarily to it's not necessarily a time to hope think it's a time of faith and a time of determination and a time to look around us and see how we can enhance our environment and make an effort going out of the comfort zone. Take a cold shower if you have to. You know, take a little cold shower and really live as if, you know, your time is just counted and you have a gift, and honor that gift. And if you've been feeling for a while to spread it out, do spread it out, because it does healing for self and healing for others. And artists has been living that for a long while. You know, when you have feedbacks from people, or, you know, it's put things out, you know, put it out. If you have something to say it. But extremely important to be patient, observe the multi-dimensionality of the things. And me, I don't necessarily consider myself any part of any movement necessarily bluntly, but I have a course of actions that honors, most importantly, love and understand the stance that people take. I get it. You know, I get it. Even sometimes these are stance I wouldn't take myself, but I will still defend the legitimacy of those stances, because unfortunately some groups had to, you know, and that's that for me.
Thank you.
Yeah. You're welcome. So with, you know, for example, with Humanizing the Icon, you know, the movement of artists that, you know, you're great, that you're facilitating, you know, there's a very important word there, humanizing. So whoever we are, whatever our skin color, if you would humanize your action, yourself, and your, you know, train of thoughts, you know, what would be your actions? You know, if you work at a job where there's a certain protocol and there's a certain system to follow, and you see where the system fails and where the system does not help, and you can help, you can find a way to transcend the system to help. I, for myself, I know I do it. I do it. And it's not always easy, but that's part of humanizing, and that's part of making an effort. And that's part also to update the system that you're using, you know?
Yeah.
And so with Humanizing the Icon, that's what is being done also on a, you know, it's like in the pop culture as well, you know, like with all the icons we're putting out. We have Exodius and, you know, Celio and other artists, you know, they're a part of it with certain quotes. We're using those icons and we're humanizing them. And for some, and I'm sure even for artists, it's like it's a refreshing way to even re-experience quote that they've said in the way that we put it out, you know. It's definitely a time on a worldwide scale for me to humanize, humanize oneself in our practice and develop compassion, empathy, and determination, you know, and choose love. Choose love, because love is courageous. Love has a way to act that will go beyond fear.
Yeah. It's not easy for people to always know what it means to choose love. And it's not easy when there's a lot of open wounds, you know, to resonate with choose love. So I understand the challenge there, even though it's a great message.
Absolutely.
Like if someone said, "How do I choose love?" You know, it's like it's loaded.
Oh, it is. It is.
You know? It's a real thing. It's a real frequency. It's a real choice.
Yeah.
But it's still fully loaded when there's so much other stuff needing to be processed in real time, you know. That's why I understood why people went black on Tuesday, why people are staying off social media. because it's a time to really understand, what do these words mean? You know, what am I saying when I'm talking about this? Am I just saying, like, what am I feel it. I know it's coming from the heart, but I want to be able to back it up, you know?
Man, I think that's so
Yeah.
important what you just said. Like, it's super important.
You know?
You know,
Yeah.
it's exactly. And you know, it's you know, I've had a moment with a fellow in my network that, you know, I was a witness last year of a moment that was so racist, and you know, I was like, whoa. And also put the Black Lives Matter, and I came up full circle with him last year, so it's all good. We came up full circle, but he also put that Black Lives Matter, and I had a little hint, kind of, to, you know, being like, oh, so you had an awakening now, you know, and I had a little moment with that, you know, with him, and it's it's a moment where, you know, when there's a movement, it could be ecological, it could be so-called racial, social, whatever. The authenticity is so important. Like, if not, it's counterproductive.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you do not go in a trend and you're reflecting, or for some reason you do not relate, that's truthful.
Mm-hmm.
If you are closed and you don't want to question, maybe there could be a certain problem, but that could be legitimate too, because each one is on their own timing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, uh, we're not gonna, you know, it's not time to kind of force necessarily something. Um, However, it feels like, and again, that's me with my love thing. It feels like when you know, people or systems must be accountable for very specific things.
Mm-hmm.
If you genuinely feels you have to kind of, and from love, you still feel you have to kind of genuinely strike, genuinely like force in a way,
Mm-hmm.
that could be what's needed. You know, that could be what's needed. It could be like a slap in the face to just be to awaken. You know, if there's a corporation, if there's a corporation that is really detrimental to the to nature, and there's been many messages, and the response has been either no response at all, or response that doesn't seem to be connected with reality at all, maybe a time that you're gonna have to give a, you know, clearer message. And a clearer message may not be what is considered nice. You know, and it is what it is, you know. And what I'm appreciating right now, I think there's a lot of people is asking questions, and I think the project that we're working on and the event that we had last week, when we had this wonderful Zoom event with people from different places in the world, um, tuning in into the same intention, with a beautiful program, um, with an excerpt from the first episode of Why Not Choose Love, you know, which goes into the core of Hollywood, why Hollywood, and why not choose love, but core of Hollywood, which has such a role in society's narrative. You know, it's a trip that is nourishing.
Mm-hmm.
And we are right now in a time of deconstruction on a global scale. You know, there's deconstruction occurring, and this very project that, you know, you have put together is deconstructive by nature.
I guess
You
so.
know, yeah. What did you say?
I guess so.
You know, it definitely
That's
makes
what I've been told.
yeah, it allows stuff. It allows to see certain things from different perspective.
And yeah, and it's like, who knew that it could be controversial? and it is.
And tell me about that, you know, the responses that you had in terms of controversial, for example.
I mean, it's been going on the whole time, you know, different people have seen the content. And some feel like it's beautiful, amazing, masterful art, but yet it's still controversial in its way, in its way. And some people are even triggered by the fact that it's in episodic form, you know, which I totally get. I sat on panels, you know, throughout the process of making this and giving talks and saying that they're the pioneers of cinema. I will never do it for any other platform than the cinema, you know, like I was that person, you know, but it's like in a time like this, what are you going to do? You know? And I like being flexible and I like going with the time and I like what I'm learning and I like going outside my comfort zone, you know? So I guess what I can say for myself that could be a positive is that I don't feel defensive about those things. I feel like when someone's like, what are you doing? Making this a web series. It's like, hey, I get you. I get you. I felt that way too, you know? Are you sending me a message?
It's great to not be necessarily defensive about that, you know, to.
Yeah, and look, like we don't even need to talk about it because it is a week that is full of so much, so much. I'm just grateful to have people like you in my life. And I'm glad that even amidst this intense time, we're able to connect, you know, across the world or continent at least, and admit what we don't know. And and just say hi.
Hi. Absolutely.
It is strange. It is strange to be in this space. And was that really an earthquake? I forgot about it. I think it might have been. I'm convinced.
As you know, I'm literally like checking right now.
I mean, I haven't looked on Facebook to see if anyone posted anything, but
yo.
What?
I think it was.
Yeah, no, dude, my furniture was swaying. Like
maybe I think so. Like I think it's saying maybe I'm like 932, a magnitude of 5.5.
Yeah.
But it's where are you though? Because it says Ridge Crest.
Well, as long as it's it doesn't have to be LA. We didn't feel that size. We would feel you know what I'm saying? Like even if it wasn't right here, we would still feel it. It would just not be as impactful as the place that was the center. Oh yeah, that's not far. 25 miles. It's like an hour and a half away or something. Oh yeah, there's people from LA saying they felt it. Yeah. Absolutely. San Bernardino. I mean, that's right here. I mean, my table was swaying. Like I kept feeling like an earthquake was coming for like weeks. I hope. La 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 la.
I love you.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's like strange to know, you know, what is appropriate to even like delve into, you know, but like that's the esoteric agenda director Ben. He'll delve into anything. at any moment. And I'm like, it's really interesting, you know. You want to know one of the things he gets into?
Go ahead.
Just like how during this time, well, I don't know. See, I feel weird even saying it.
I want to hear it.
Just like the way the internet's getting built, you know, while we're at home, like all plugged into our devices. It's really interesting to think about, even not in a negative way, just in complete neutrality of just like how all the artificial intelligence gets to really study us during this time and get to know like human behavior and how we think and process information, you know, because we're all plugged in like more than ever in the history of humanity. And so it's like actually contributing to the building of this worldwide web.
Absolutely.
I'm sure people have all kinds of opinions.
Yeah, definitely.
You know?
That too. I'll tell you something quick about the way that I like, you know, there's such a thing as artificial intelligence.
Yeah, that's what yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm.
And that's me, guys, such a thing as spiritual intelligence, or natural or organic, if you want to say, but I'll say spiritual.
Definitely. That too. I'll tell you something.
For myself, in my experience, experiencing the human body, experiencing my consciousness and my interaction with what I see and what I feel all around me,
Mm-hmm.
and the experience inside of me. And just that in itself,
Mm-hmm.
it didn't really come with a manual of instruction like a computer. And if you have, and the common person, or what is, you know, I would say advertised,
Mm-hmm.
for some anyway, for some network, but maybe don't even know how far they could go with just their body and their consciousness.
Yeah, well, that's
you know,
you know, getting into the realm of telepathy and quantum fields and stuff.
I feel that
it's being utilized. It's being understood.
I love that. That was subtle. I like that.
You know,
well, yeah.
As the internet grows its own immune system.
Yo.
You know, but these are like sidebars to all of this, you know.
I'm definitely wishing for humanity to discover more and more, you know, the deeper levels of the human body and consciousness,
mm-hmm.
and what can be done, and the gift of healing that it offers, and the blast and the fun that it also offers, and how knowing that, or discovering that, shift your reality.
Yeah, and totally, right? Like totally. And also that's why we encourage people to do their art and do their creative endeavors, whatever that is.
Oh man, I so encourage it.
Because the more you build up your own creative connection, I'll just use that word because it's vague enough to include everything that I mean.
Oh my God.
Maybe somehow the less susceptible you are to certain programming that's coming in from other people and entities or groups or society or family or whatever, because the more you go into then express in your own creative way, the more you're connecting with what is actually going on with you, you know, in a way. So,
You already said a lot.
you know,
Yeah, I get it. The one watching maybe explain it more, but I totally understand. That's for sure. And that's the whole thing of patience we were talking about before in the beginning of the talk, to be able to kind of have a, you know, some stillness inside. You can be totally still inside and be like invigorating from the outside when we look at you. You know, you know, you can see people dancing and they can look crazy as they're dancing, and inside of them there's really stillness. You know, dancers will talk about that.
and freedom, you know, even with the protests, it's like art, you know, these, I haven't participated in one, but I've seen a little bit of just on the peaceful, and my good friends that have participated in the peaceful protests and the beauty, you know. What are you looking at over there?
Sorry. I love that. It's like, what are you looking at? I'm back. I was listening though.
Wandering eyes.
I was checking your our on our live that's on Facebook. I'm listening.
It's pretty quiet, honestly. I think people are definitely. I mean, there's people that have tuned in, but it's like people are in that state of reflection we were talking about, you know. But yeah, just the beauty of like the way people are coming together. There's art in that.
Absolutely.
That is art.
It is. It is. I feel like we cannot.
It's all art. It's all art.
Yeah. Yeah.
And how do we respond to it, you know?
There's, yeah, absolutely. And there's, you know, there's, as you said, there's beauty in all things in a certain way, you know.
And some of it's destructive, you know, with the intervening of these other forces, you know.
Yo, it's real. It's definitely real. But real in what sense? You know, there's a game that's being played. You know, there's definitely a game that's being played, and you know, I feel that
it shows opportunism.
I'm sorry.
It's showing opportunism.
Mm.
You know, people taking advantage and like.
Yeah.
Is a real issue.
It is. It is. Mm-hmm. It is disruptive in another way, you know. It's like, oh, okay, you know, and that,
you think like, when have I been opportunistic? You know, like not obviously in that way, but
that's I like that, you know, because you know, my partner would, you know, sometimes we go through this process together that, you know, like for example, I'm, you know, well, sometimes will take me time to even strike, because I will, and I mean strike not in the way of protesting. I'm talking about when you, for whatever reason, you have to be like very, for whatever situation, you have like, oh, I have to strike in that situation. Sometimes it will take me a while because I so put myself in the other's shoes.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and just like you just said, you know, like, you know, raising the question, when in my life have I been opportunistic? You know, when in my life that somebody's bringing up like a clear truth to solve right now, and I'm just hiding, you know, you're just hiding, basically. You're just in denial. That's the word. You're just in denial. You know, so it's a process. You know, it's because that's the thing, you know, that's why it's so multi-dimensional, because at the very same time that you can point your fingers, it's at the very same time it's as if that you're also pointing fingers against yourself. You know, and that's what can be confusing.
Yeah, that's where that's why it's such a good time for reflection, you know.
Exactly, and I see myself with time, the multi-dimensional beings, and I feel that being a warrior, like in these times, because there's this energy of
Yeah.
war, is also to build bridges. It's not necessarily to go against, but it's also to build bridges.
Sure.
And building bridges is like, for all the people who are experiencing the warrior energy right now, building bridges is also the work of a warrior, because only a warrior can actually really like go from maybe one party and go to the other party and be like, okay, let's set this straight. That's courage.
Yeah.
That's courage, so yeah, that's for myself, building bridges, and sense that as a holistic practitioner, artist, healing artist, some will say as well, as a healing artist as well, there's a calm water that I also provide in my surrounding, you know and when people come to me and ask questions, to give somewhat of a nuanced view, and that only comes with stillness and taking your time to really like, you're not just defending yourself. You got to really like implement different views. It's not even you answering at this point. As a healing artist, sometimes you're really like, kind of doing your best to be a channel, a channel for humanity as a whole, maybe for one point of view or one,
Yeah.
And yeah, so when have we been opportunistic, or when have you been, and that's the whole thing of compassion. That's where empathy comes on.
Yeah.
And it's these are great questions. This is crazy.
Yeah.
This is crazy, because we've been there before. I saw an image of, there was a man in a protest, a melanin man, so black man, melanin man. So it was like three generations. There was this man who was like 43. There was this guy who was like in his 30s, like 30, and there was this other younger guy who was 16. And I don't know what the one who's 40 was about to do.
Yeah.
But the one who's 30 said, we need to act differently. He said, whatever your generation did, it didn't work in a certain way, because we're still in that situation. And the one who was 40 years old was like kind of acknowledging, and the one who's 30 is like between the two generations. He speaks to the one who's 16 and says, I'm 30, and when I was your age, I was doing exactly what you're doing now, protesting and looking for a way to get solve that, what we're all going through. And he says, you gonna have to do better some way, somehow, because what this generation didn't work, what I'm doing is not working. We're still in process. You must do better. And I thought it was so interesting, because that takes humbleness. That takes humbleness. And also it shows that as a society, what is new to us now has been going on for a while.
Yeah.
It's been going on for a while. And it doesn't even mean that when we're going to get out of this period that we're all going through right now, that there will necessarily be, a huge difference either. In terms of,
we remain optimistic. I think that like as we go through these cycles, and like you're saying, feels like repeats, it's still evolution.
exactly.
So sometimes things accelerate, and maybe that's going to be one of these times. We hope.
Definitely.
So I don't know. Maybe we should leave it on that note.
Could be. Yeah, we could leave it on that note for now, for this one. And thank you for taking the time. Thank you for tuning in. And thank you for, everyone that perhaps just passed by for like a little quick second, even though it's very quiet, and let's remain optimistic, as you say.
Yeah.
And I like to remember that revolution also occurs on an individual level, and sometimes it's quicker on an individual level before it becomes necessarily like institutional, social as a whole. And just knowing people like you, and knowing the people around me, and seeing those moments that are not necessarily in the mainstream media, but that I see when I walk the streets.
Yeah.
The acts of kindness, the openness, the faithfulness I see in people's faces. Yeah, it's definitely optimistic, and we know that it's happening still.
Yeah.
It's happening still.
Well, I'm glad we checked in with each other. It feels good to check in.
Absolutely.
And raise the questions. And yeah, just be humbled and be like excited about the beauty that's to come. And the and the beauty that is. And yeah, hope humanity can rise up.
Yeah, faith in there.
Mm-hmm.
Faith in there, definitely. I think it's happening more than we see,
And Dove Raven. So, good words, Dove Raven. Yeah, we'll talk more about that too. But
absolutely.
All right. Well, peace and love.
Peace and love.
High
vibration. Mwah.
Bye. Love you.
Bye.
Ciao.